Hey there, my name's Lauren Rowe, and I decided after 0 requests to do a video like this to make a Draw My Life, my cystic fibrosis story. So if you like stick figures, you're in for a real treat. And yes, I am adorable. Once upon a time in the suburbs of southwest Sydney, Australia, a sexy young couple fell in love, got married, and had a beautiful daughter, Katie. But then, I slid out into the world and life was never to be the same. See that concerned look on my parents' faces? Yeah, that's because I was just about to be rushed straight to the kids' hospital for emergency surgery to remove part of my bowel. This photo is now known as the death photo in our family because nurses took it in case I didn't make it. On a side note, I was a pretty chubby baby and did not fit into the humidity crib in the ambulance. Yeah. The doctors told my parents I had a genetic illness called cystic fibrosis. So it was explained as a life-threatening illness that affects all the mucus-producing organs in the body, which means my body would produce thick, sticky mucus, causing infections and deterioration of those organs. Now, remembering this is 1990 before the internet, so there was no online forums, no Google, nothing. By the time I was 3 years old, my parents were getting used to taking care of a sick kid, giving me physio every day and medication. For physio, my parents would have to repeatedly hit my chest. And look, it didn't hurt, guys, but it wasn't nice for anyone. At this time, I had another major operation and caught a nasty, untreatable lung infection called MRSA. But hey, I was still adorable, right? From then on as a kid, I spent a lot of time trying to keep healthy, spending 3 to 4 hours every day doing nebulizers and physio, lots of exercise, needles, and stays in hospital where I would be in an isolated room for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. So I used my imagination a lot to keep myself occupied. Remember, before the internet, people. Yeah, I knew I was different growing up. Besides the fact I would ask my mum deep questions, like when I was 6, I asked, "What's the meaning of life?" To which she replied, "Yeah, go ask your father." But I also wasn't like the other kids attending birthday parties and school carnivals. I ended up in sick bay a lot and at the back of the class coughing or taking tablets before I ate anything. Regardless, I was happy and had a great childhood, even though it was a bit different. I loved movies, gymnastics, and puppies. I even had career prospects when I sat my parents down and told them I wanted to be a stripper when I grew up. At 9 years old, I was pretty sick, but I was lucky to be one of the first kids in Australia to go on a trial drug which got rid of that nasty infection. And I got to meet Olivia Newton-John, aka Sandy from Greece, for my very own Starlight wish. A couple of years later, I was out with my family looking at exhibition homes. I wasn't feeling too well, but that was normal, so I was still goofing around until I coughed up 1 litre of blood in the display home bathroom. After scaring onlookers, we rushed out of there and back to hospital. They did a procedure to stop the bleeding where I needed to be resuscitated back, and a few days later, I was one of the first Australians to get a lobe of their lung removed for this problem. My family and I would play charades to pass the time, and yeah, it was a little scary. The operation, not the balloon, which was totally sent from Olivia Newton-John, and she totally called me to help me recover. But I was determined, and later that year I won a gymnastics competition with my friend. Then it was high school. I wasn't a fan of high school, besides the fact I never got a Valentine's Day card in my locker. I had a lot of time off to be in hospital, which made it difficult. But I still tried my best at everything I did, even at the 400-meter sprint at the athletics carnival. Although it was a little awkward telling the volunteer mum who was handing me a 3rd place ribbon that I was from the race before. So I focused on gymnastics, which helped my lungs a lot, training about 20 hours a week, which got me to nationals, and my routines were designed so I had just enough breath to complete them on about 60-ish% lung capacity. After this, I noticed my lungs were still declining and I couldn't keep up with gymnastics or school. So I said goodbye to both and started distance education, aka homeschool, and taught myself the subjects. My grades went from C's to A+, and it was the first time I thought, hey, I'm smart. It was just because I missed so much school I never got good grades. And on a side note, guys, there are many different types of intelligence that cannot be measured, so don't ever let that get you down. During homeschool, my lungs stabilized, but with no gymnastics or school friends, I was a little sad and lonely. So for my final year, I went back to mainstream school, fully developed and ready to make some friends, which I did. And that photo was of my friends visiting me in hospital just before I accidentally set off the fire alarm. Oopsie. It was a great but tough year. Not many people knew my lungs were getting very bad, and I liked it like that, so I would wear my high heels going out so I could blame them on not keeping up and not the fact that I was struggling to breathe. But it was still a great year. I even scored myself a boyfriend. And I made it to formal, which I didn't think I'd make it, besides the fact I was coughing up blood during my final exams. Lol. After school, my lungs kept on deteriorating, and I stopped responding to treatment. I couldn't study or travel or plan for a future like my friends did. I fell into depression. At 19 years old, I went under review and was eligible to go on the double lung transplant list. Every day, I watched my body slowly die over 7 months. I was on oxygen, wheelchair bound, was in a lot of pain and felt incredibly sick. There was no second of relief from the fact I was suffocating and drowning in my own body. I was incredibly lucky to still have lots of laughs with my family and friends. And a little side story, my mum wheeled me to the bathroom and took a phone call with her friend and forgot about me for 45 minutes. Yeah, mum, I'm still telling that story, but thanks for being my carer. I love you. At 11 p.m. on the 31st of March 2010, I was lying in my hospital bed with just 2 weeks left to live when I was told that was St. Vincent's. They have lungs for you. And man, was I ready. It was horrible saying goodbye to my family before I went into surgery. I had a few setbacks post-transplant. It was weird learning to walk again and just breathe. But within 2 months, I got myself a job as an extra on film and TV for some fun, and it was here I realized I wanted to try acting. So I signed up for a course and fell head over heels in love. After attending what felt like every part-time acting course in Sydney, I was accepted into Actors Centre Australia at 21. Although I was at my healthiest with about 68% lung capacity, it was questioned whether I could keep up with a full-time course. But I did, even though after one performance I collapsed after pushing myself after a virus, and I was dressed in a corset and full-on 1900s costume. But hey, I call it my Moulin Rouge moment and started to find a thing called balance after that. By 24, I was living out of home and graduated. Woo! Possibly the most exciting time of my life. I finally stopped thinking something bad is going to happen because, it kind of always did. And within a few months, I was back in emergency with shortness of breath, and it was confirmed my lungs were rejecting. A shout out to anyone who has donated plasma, because it was someone's donation that helped with my treatment to stabilize me, even though the rejection left behind 50% of damage. I had to give up work, move back home, grieve for the life I worked really hard for yet couldn't live. I even chopped off all my hair like after a bad breakup, and bad decision, Lauren. By 25, after feeling so alone, I realized I wasn't while interviewing other recipients for a project. I started to share my health story instead of trying to hide it to be normal. I made my first YouTube clip with that terrible haircut, started care bags for hospitals, speaking at events and creating empowerment days to form Gifted Life. I set out to help others only to find it was you guys who helped me. If you are still watching this, please do not ever underestimate the power of your own story. And thank you. It's been almost 3 years now living on 30% lung capacity, along with some other fun health issues. And I'm not going to lie, it's been incredibly challenging, both physically and emotionally. Not just because of my struggles, but witnessing the struggles and passing of many others. It doesn't matter if you were best friends or mutual friends. Losing someone to the same illness as you is always personal. But I have found the things worth fighting for. My boobs. Joking! This year I ended up in hospital with very sick lungs. to the point where I apparently even stopped breathing for a bit. It's been a tough year recovering and, to be honest, immensely difficult behind the smile and public campaigning that people do see. I have been improving bit by bit, thankfully, but as it stands, my future is extremely uncertain, especially whether I'll be needing a second transplant or not, as my lung function is even lower than before. Regardless of what the future holds for my cystic fibrosis story, even if I'm sometimes fed up, angry, or scared, I will always fight fearlessly.